Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer weiteren Episode von Storyville und diesmal einer speziellen, weil es eine ganze Episode auf Englisch ist. Ich bin auch selber gespannt, wie das Interview mit Tom abläuft. Englisch schreiben ist ja eine Sache, aber dann sofort auf Englisch sprechen, da brauche ich immer so 2-3 Tage, bis ich wieder in Fahrt komme. Und dann hole ich den Tom gleich rein. Und dann erzählt er uns zu seinem Konzept Transformational Storytelling and Dramatic Comedy mehr und zu dem Workshop, der am 24. November und 25. November in Berlin stattfindet.
And we're live.
So, Tom, welcome to our screenwriting podcast, Storyville.
Thank you so much.
Our first question is always, who are you? And what are you doing here?
Well, that's probably the main question that every story tries to answer. But I will say that initially I was studying pre-med and planning to go to medical school, and then I saw a series of movies that came out around the same time. One of them being this John Schlesinger, no relation, and Waldo Salt movie. That called Midnight Cowboy. And
oh yeah,
what happened was I started seeing these movies, and I was having like emotional experiences I wasn't having in my own life. And so that was kind of my call to adventure, to think about taking another path, that there was something about the experience of getting moved watching these films that I wanted to experience more of, and then somehow be involved in doing that myself. So I ultimately wound up going to UCLA Film School and studying screenwriting, just for that very reason.
Okay, this happened to me with E.T., the same thing.
Really?
With the emotional journey.
Every time I watch that film, and that's one of the that's one of the great transformational films. It's just so beautiful. It's really a beautiful film.
Okay, that's the next question. What is transformational storytelling?
Transformational storytelling is actually, it's more of a generic term that I use that really derived from work that I did studying mythology with Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces.
Yeah.
And then about 7 years ago, I revisited the kind of partner book to that called The Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch. And I started to see that these kind of archetypal journeys, these universal journeys, were patterns that could be found in stories that take the audience on an emotional journey and, in a sense, transform the way they see the issues that are being raised. So some seminars used to be called The Hero's Journey. Sometimes I call these seminars The Heroine's Journey. But it's really about stories that have the power to transform the way we perceive and respond to the world. And I think everybody, when you think of your favorite films, usually those were films that you had that kind of transformational experience while you were watching it, even though when I watched Midnight Cowboy, I had no idea what was going on. I was like 17 and I drove my dad's car downtown on a date, and it was just at the time where miniskirts came in, so I was completely disoriented.
Transformational.
And then, that was it. That was a certain rite of passage in its own way, even though I'm still working on that.
Most of us know the hero's journey. Is there a big difference between hero's and heroine's journey?
Yes, there's quite a big difference. And, fortunately, next weekend I'm teaching a workshop in Santa Monica where the author of the Heroine's Journey book, Maureen Murdoch, is going to attend. So I'm really excited about that because she's curious to see how I'm applying some of these principles to storytelling in film and television. And I would say, in a sense, you could say that the heroine's journey is something that begins when the hero's journey is ending, meaning that what Maureen found was that the hero's journey was actually more about what men experience when they go through rites of passages, but not so much what women experience. And what she started to lay out was that because the status quo world is more of a masculine, male-driven, especially in Western capitalist countries, driven society, that for women to be successful, that oftentimes it means that they are, they're kind of separating from their deeper feminine in order to be successful in a male-driven world. And no matter how successful they actually become, that at a certain point they start to realize that there's an emptiness inside, that outer success on its own is not fulfilling enough. And in a sense, this is where the heroine's journey begins. And I think as I understand it, and I'll find out more when I actually teach the workshop, and Maureen is there to get her feedback on this. But what's kind of come to me, and as it applies to our lives and to these transformational film stories, is that the heroine's journey or transformational stories are about a quest or a journey to find our authentic voice. So when you say, "Who are you?" that would be a different answer like every year of my life. But to find what your truth is, and then what's unique about the heroine's journey is that then you express that truth in a supportive community or a tribe or a society. So the heroine's journey is a journey that is really going into our, you could say, into the spiritual realm of intuition, of instinct, of imagination, this so-called invisible. It's leaving the kind of physical world and going into this metaphysical world. And what's also unique about the heroine's journey compared to the hero's journey is that the initiation, the deepest point in the hero's journey is really about, as we all know, it's about facing your shadow and then coming to some reconciliation with these shadow issues. And it's very much a personal journey. In Jungian terms, it would be about the experience of individuation. What's different with the heroine's journey is that initiation is something that comes with a group. It's not just a single person hero's initiation, it's a group initiation. And I think the main differentiation between the hero's journey and the heroine's journey, as you apply it to film, television, and digital narratives, is that the actual kind of initiation, the initiation means kind of death and rebirth, but as you apply it to film stories, what it means is that all the characters in your character web, or what sometimes I call the emotional network of characters, that all the characters go through that initiation together. And so what I've found that in working with these kind of archetypal journeys, that the heroine's journey or transformational stories that are really about the whole ensemble of characters going through a transformation applies most directly to family drama. And so, and there's a lot, every genre has a different kind of set of rules or at least tendencies. So in movies like Little Miss Sunshine that I use, Billy Elliot, and these kind of films, every character is equally important because the whole network, the whole family is going through some kind of change if, in fact, it's a life-affirming ending.
Do you have any perfect examples for heroine's journey?
Really, what's fascinating about it is that, there are these movies that all of these films, these transformational films, tend to either be about a family or surrogate family. So there's Little Miss Sunshine, Billy Elliot, but also Amelie, The Full Monty. And what's curious, though, is that if it's not a biological family, then oftentimes the characters in a character web are a kind of surrogate family. And you find this in virtually every great television series, that there's either a family or like in Shameless, or a surrogate family that basically has the same kind of function in the story as a biological family has. And of course, with TV series, it's so important to have the communal locations, so this kind of network of characters will be able to be interacting during the course of the season. Most
of your examples are family dramas, but more dramedies, where you can laugh and cry at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a personal preference. There are certainly heroines' journeys, family dramas that don't bring humor into them. But it was a number of years ago. I was teaching at the International Film School, and I was teaching. Then family drama was called melodrama. And a lot of the examples were like this great Swedish film, My Life as a Dog. They were movies that were serious family dramas, but they brought humor into them. This Indian wedding film that I've shown at workshops before. But so they can have very serious, this Mira Nair movie, these movies that have really deadly serious topics, but they bring humor into them. And the reason why, and again, they don't all have to have humor to be a heroine's journey, but the idea is that if you are able to weave humor into these stories that are really serious, deadly serious, then it gives the audience enough distance to experience the theme, which usually in family drama is a taboo, in a way that they don't start distancing themselves because it's too difficult to watch. You feel like you're too close to it. So humor is something that really allows the audience to go on the journey and gives them a little bit of a distance, and also gives them that, the idea of comic relief, the kind of thing that Hitchcock would do in his films. So Monsoon Wedding, that's the one I was trying to think of.
Yes. But we can use it in other genres.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The main thing is that it's something that can get really pedantic. Like, for example, one could argue that Wonder Woman, which was a great fun movie, is actually more of a hero's journey than a heroine's journey. In that,
absolutely.
Yeah. However, sometimes I don't go public with this, but sometimes I rewrite these movies, especially the ones that have made $200 million. As a heroine, it would be a heroine's journey if her kind of fellow warriors from, I think it was Atlantis, if they resurfaced in contemporary times and formed more of a group to go through the journey. So even in a sense, the Seven Samurai movies are more heroines' journeys than heroes' journey, because the main characters need to shift from being self-centered more into being group-centered.
So animation adventures are more heroine journey because the characters are helping each other.
That's right.
What about other media? Is it possible to use it in video games, in VR experiences, in documentaries, in novels?
I know more about documentaries than I do about VR experience and video games. But certainly in the video games, like I've done some work with Red Bull here, and gaming is one of the main things they do along with extreme sports. And just the idea that in a lot of these, there's like stadiums full of teams playing these video games. So that's a kind of heroine's journey in itself. Almost all team sports are like that. Sometimes you have your superstars like LeBron James, but in a sense, they are all kind of heroines' journeys. And I'm just kind of in the process of working with a colleague in Argentina about seeing more how these heroines' journeys can play into digital narratives.
So what can I expect of the workshop on November 24th and 25th in Berlin?
The one thing that really kind of sets this workshop aside from other workshops is that this is just as much about your creative process as it is about how to kind of structure out these stories. That your relationship to the story is really key, and one of the main things that we work with is a basic fundamental premise that comes out of transformational storytelling, which is that while you're writing a story, you're going on a parallel journey with the characters. And so much of what we experience, like for example, when we sit down to write, sometimes there can be kind of a restlessness and anxiety, and we're making coffee and then, cleaning out the closet and vacuuming when, we should be writing. But these kind of things, this kind of restlessness is something that this is actually what characters are feeling at the beginning of a story, because all stories begin when characters are about to leave their comfort zone. Like this dysfunctional family in Little Miss Sunshine, they're all going to be in this Volkswagen bus, heading to Florida or heading to California rather. Yeah, so a lot of what we're going to be talking about is the creative process and how that relates to what you're writing. Now, of course, in addition to that, we're going to be looking at the essential elements of how family dramas function. And because this is kind of a unique hybrid genre of family and comedy, we're going to be looking at how that functions together. Just about everything I do is based on how stories function, because my sense is that in storytelling, form is something that follows function, like Louis Sullivan, the architect, and I think something that dated back to Greek architecture, that when he was creating skyscrapers for the first time in Chicago, it was suggested he looked at what had been done in the past, and that didn't really invigorate him. What he found to be inspirational was looking at what the purpose of the building is first, and so the form comes out of the function. And so we're going to be looking at, there's 7 or 8 very specific ways that stories function. If you don't understand these, then you might be able to write a good screenplay, but when you get into development, that's when a lot of the issues can start to happen. But if everybody's kind of on the same page with how stories function, and we're going to be talking about how these dramatic comedies as transformational films function, then in a sense, you always have kind of a creative core to go back to when you're doing rewrites.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Bring a family comedy with me.
Great.
Great. Looking for some drama.
Yeah. Well, that's the challenge. That's really the challenge, because a lot of times people think, well, we've got a comedy, we'll add some drama. We've got a drama, and we'll add some comedy. But
comedy.
It doesn't quite work that way. It's really like there's the serious drama, and then the comedy kind of is one of the strands that kind of weaves into this story braid. And there's very kind of specific ways that happens. But what we'll see is that it's really important to start with a serious dramatic structure. Because a lot of times people think, well, I'm writing the serious story, I'll just, have somebody slip on a banana peel to add some.
Oh no!
It's like, oh, that'll get them rolling in the aisles. So yeah, we're going to really be kind of looking at how these transformational stories, how they function, and what the essential elements are, because every genre functions in a different way. And it took me a number of years to realize this, because I used to kind of apply general rules of dramaturgy to all different kinds of films. But they're like in thrillers, everyone says the main character has to make a decision by page 10 and have a goal and all that stuff. But thrillers don't work that way at all. Thrillers are driven forward by the antagonist. Every genre has a different way of shaping the stories, and so we'll be looking very specifically at the fundamental elements of this. It's really it's an amazing form of storytelling that, people like Billy Wilder and Ernst Lubitsch and that really were masters of.
Okay, so it will be 2 days?
Right.
How many hours? How many? How big is the group?
The groups are there's usually about 20 to 25 people, something like that. So It's a relatively small group. I don't remember the exact times of the workshops, but it's usually 10 to 5 or 10 to 6, something like that.
Okay.
And then for people that want to kind of then take these principles and put them into practice, we've set up a special 3-day development workshop to follow the 2 days. So 26, 27, 28.
On Monday,
Monday, Tuesday,
and
Wednesday. Yeah, so you can kind of like then bring in the stories you're working on and develop them with these principles, and also a series of storytelling development exercises I've developed over the years, including one that's called the story Constellation, where you really see your characters and the character webs kind of come alive in front of you.
When was the first time you came up with your concept?
So what happened was that I went to UCLA Film School, and I wrote 2 scripts that were both optioned, and they were big movie stars involved and all that kind of stuff, but the films didn't get made. And I went to Chicago, where I grew up, to research a 3rd story, and it was the worst winter in like 100 years. Everything was kind of going wrong, and I was broke. I didn't have any money, and a friend of mine was managing a hotel in downtown Chicago, so he got me a job as a bellman. And long story short, there was another bellman there who was a classics scholar at the University of Chicago, and I was telling him that, I studied screenwriting, I was really interested in storytelling, and he said, well, why don't you come with me to this lecture tonight? I think you'll really like it. I didn't know anything about it, and I went to this lecture, and it was Joseph Campbell. So that's how I first met Joseph Campbell, and that kind of started this journey from going to his workshops, then to really starting to study the work of one of his colleagues, Jean Houston. And with Jean especially, she was talking about how this journey is something that is not just the journey of characters, it's the journey of the artist. And at that time, I met my friend Keith Cunningham, and we had all the same kind of interests. So we really started developing this, probably 25 years ago, because our fascination with it was not just about writing movies. It was like when you learn how to tell a transformational story, it's also informing us on how to live a gratifying life.
So where can our fans find more of you?
You can come to my website, which is tomschlesinger.com. Schlesinger like John Schlesinger. It's Schlesinger. You can find out more information about the Berlin workshop, and there's articles you can read about storytelling and videos you can buy and things like that. But I think the best thing is to do that, or you can, if you go to the Scriptmakers site, they have all this information as well. They're organizing the workshop and doing a great job with that. So I think that either go to Scriptmakers or come to my website, and I'm always open to answering questions that you have. So you can just send an email to me through the website.
Yeah, and your blog. I particularly loved your blog about The Force Awakens.
Yeah, well, that was a really good example of a heroine's journey.
I'm looking forward to the workshop.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Looking forward to meeting you too, and I've been teaching internationally for many years. So whenever I come to Germany, the groups are always great, and I think that that's even a part of the heroine's journey. That it's really not just me up there talking for 2 days. There's a lot of group interaction. It's a true heroine's journey, and it's like it's very informative because I've written these dramatic comedies and I've studied them and that. But the main thing is that it's enjoyable. It's also a fun experience. So I'll be looking forward to coming to Berlin soon, and looking forward to meeting you when I get there.
Thank you very much for the interview. And we'll see. Maybe we can do a follow-up after the workshop.
Hey, that's a great idea.
Thanks for being a guest at Storyville, and have a nice weekend.
Yes, thanks. You too. Take care.
We will see each other in 2 weeks. No, 2 weeks. Yeah.
It's 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Look forward to that. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Das war das Interview mit Tom. Ich bin selber sehr gespannt, wie der Workshop wird. Habe eben auch einige Projekte, die ich da mitbringen kann. Und wie Tom schon sagte, findet ihr alles entweder unter scriptmakers.de oder auf seiner eigenen Seite und eben seinen ganz tollen Blog. Und ich werde berichten, wie der Workshop war. Bis bald. Ciao. Bin auch selber gespannt, wie das Interview mit Tom Schlesinger.